Many of our children are dying because they cannot get health care because we are paying illegitimate debts. Many of our mothers are dying in childbirth because they cannot get good health because of paying illegitimate debt.
Well, I've been involved in Africa for many, many years, and as a young person, really questioned the money lent to African dictators for the purpose of buying military weaponry during the Cold War, for example. And believe it or not, much of the debt that was run up by these former dictatorial leaders like Mobutu from Zaire and some of the other dictators during the Cold War is the same debt that the current democratically elected governments in these countries are paying back. And so it was wrong in the first place to lend money to people to misuse, and it's doubly wrong to charge the current constituency of those countries the responsibility of paying that debt back.
Haiti is a perfect example of this. The U.S. government, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund paid millions of dollars to the Duvalier dictatorship, both Francois, the father, and Jean-Claude, the son. And those dictatorships are known for using all sorts of loans, loans for water, loans for roads, loans for health care, to buy furs and jeeps, expensive cars for their friends and lavish parties. That happens all over the world. What is unfortunate now is that Haiti still remains the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, with really still very little access to capital, and yet is still paying debt relief in the amount of $1 million a week to the international financial institutions, the Inter-American Development Bank also being an additional lender.
What do we want?
Drop the debt!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Drop the debt!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Drop the debt!
When do we want it?
One of the really most exciting things about Jubilee is that it's the U.S. arm of an international movement for debt cancellation, which means we work with international partners all around the world, from Jubilee in the Philippines to Jubilee Zambia to Jubilee in Peru, Jubilee in Argentina, and that makes, especially weeks like this one where activists are coming to town for the IMF and World Bank annual meetings, it really helps you to see the dynamism of the movement and to feel really connected to something global and very powerful.
The Jubilee movement really started gaining political steam in the late 1990s. And so the G7 governments and the IMF and the World Bank, they sort of tricked us a little bit. They said they would give us some of what we wanted, but not everything. They said they'll come up with this debt cancellation plan. They called it HIPIC, Heavily Indebted Poor Country Initiative. And they said, okay, we'll give debt cancellation, but only if countries keep following the controversial structural adjustment programs. So we continue to push them for debt cancellation, not just for those 42 HIPIC countries, but actually a broader list of 67 countries that we feel desperately need debt cancellation.
It's very important, I'll speak for me, but I think for the rest of the group, to be here with you today, to understand something of your reality, because so often, we read statistics. So many people have HIV/AIDS, so many people can't go to school. But part of it is really, as humans, to understand how our other human beings are living with this debt burden, that then it allows us to go home and also share with people.
We had an opportunity to go to visit Kibera this morning, the slum around Nairobi. But as I was walking through Kibera this morning, it was just shocking to me as I was thinking and comparing what I had heard here at the World Social Forum from our friends at Kendron, that Kenya still pays more on debt payments than it does on its health system. And so people in places like Kibera and in places all over Kenya don't have access to health care, to education, to clean water, that the debt continues to be a drain.
I might not be able to put the exact figure, but I know in ratio, we service 12 times to debt than giving to education. 19 times more we service debt than giving infrastructure or giving health, those kind of social services.
Institutions to whom the debt is owed, whether public or private, I am very sorry to say that there is, in my view, no level of human suffering which in and of itself will cause them to change policy. That means that people have to come together and push.
Today we're standing in front of the United States Treasury Department, which is something that many of us that do not live in DC don't really think about. But here it is for you in living color. And the interesting thing about that building is it's home for many hours, at least 9 to 5, of the head of the United States Treasury Department. Who is the U.S. Treasury Secretary?
I don't know. Well, it's John and his last name starts with an S.
We don't know. Okay, it's Henry Parsons Jr. Henry Parsons Jr. He's the former CEO of Goldman Sachs.
I know he was in corporate America big time, so.
Yeah. I think this person is very important because this person has got big stakes in IMF and World Bank functionalities.
As you all know by now, the U.S. Treasury actually has a veto vote to block any reforms or start any reforms within these two institutions that are very important to the livelihoods of millions of Africans.
The secretary should be someone with a genuine concern for solving problems of poverty and alleviating poverty, and in cases where there is an imbalance between the developed nations and the nations that are struggling to develop, he should be sympathetic to that struggle.
And so that's what the Picture New Leadership campaign is all about. It's about putting pressure on the next administration. Even before the next administration is elected, we are putting pressure on both of the major candidates for president, Senator Obama and Senator McCain. And we're asking them to commit to appoint a Treasury Secretary that will make the issues of extreme poverty and international debt a priority.
Now the great thing about this campaign is that you can get together with people in your community or by yourself, in your sorority, with your crew team, anybody you can think of. Get together in a creative way and take a picture with a sign that reads, "Picture New Leadership on Global Poverty and Debt. Cancel debts, more and better aid."